Okay, so you guys have created your room at this point. You've got it ready to go. You've got some cool stuff going on, some cool layouts. Let's kind of go over looking at prop placement and materials. So prop placement inside of Unreal Engine is very, very simple. Again, we're going to be going back to our content folder and then maybe our starter content. And then we have a couple things like props. We have props right here. So here's a rock. I'm going to grab this rock, kind of put it right here. It's a little bit big, so I'm going to scale it down some. And maybe kind of rotate it a little. And you can see that part of it is under the ground, and that's perfectly fine, right? Because the player's never going to see that. The player can't go under here. And if they can, then they will see it, but that means you messed up somewhere else. So you don't really have to worry about it. A lot of games have stuff just slammed right through other things, and as long as you can never see it, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to put the other rock over here. And this is actually the same rock, but you can see just by simply rotating it, you can't tell, right? And I could even scale it a little weird, like that. So we can't tell. So that's putting the rock through, making sure it's not coming through the wall, which it's not. Perfect. Okay. So what I can do is just kind of keep looking at this around here and deciding where else we're going to put some props. So let's say we got the ceiling lamp. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. When I grab it, it may not come out right away just because it has to load it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this into the roof. There we go. Okay. Now a couple of problems we're going to have is that they're not actually casting light right now, are they? And the reason for that is we haven't actually put any lights in the scene. So again, if I hit play, we're going to come over here and, well, that looks kind of weird, right? Because it's obviously not lighting it. So what we can do is we're gonna add lights to that in just a second. Let's go ahead and finish setting up the scene. So let's go ahead and grab, I think there's a table. So here's the table. I'll put the table under the light. Perfect. Let's go ahead and grab a chair or two. There's one chair. I'm gonna hold Alt, slide it over here. Now I could rotate it, right? So I could just rotate it around if I wanted to, or I could just right click it and I can tell it to transform, and we're going to say mirror X, and that's just going to flip it right back around for us. Okay. So there we go. So that's kind of putting down some props in here. Now you're going to go through and actually design a whole thing. So you're going to have your fully populated room. It's going to look like a really nice house. You're going to put all the props in there and stuff like that and mess around with it. Like there's actually glass for the windows that you can put in, right? And that will change how the light and stuff goes through the windows to give it more of a realistic look. And again, it does not matter if it's sticking through the wall. As long as it's covering the hole you need it to cover, that's really all that matters. And as long as it's not through the back. There we go. So it's just sitting there inside, looking pretty good. Okay, now real quick, if I want to do something like, let's say I want to move this rock and I don't want it to snap. What I can do is I can come up here and we have our snaps on, right? So this is snap to grid. I'm going to click that. And now I can just slide it wherever I want to. There's no more snapping. Or I can tell it I would want like to snap by 5 instead of 10. And that gives me more subtle movements over 10. Right, so that's one of those nice handy things. And that applies to rotating it as well. Like if I'm on rotation, it's always going by 10, but I can change it. No, I'd like you to rotate by 5 instead. Right, and then that kind of gives me a little bit more control over that. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Now the last thing I'm going to do in this real short video is just kind of go over materials. So if you want to apply a different material to your objects, well, actually I didn't do the lights yet, never mind. So let's go ahead and grab a light. So I'm going to grab a light. So for this is going to be a point light, or we can do a spotlight. So if I grab a spotlight and drop it, you can see that it comes out in a cone, just like we want it to. However, one thing that we don't have is that it's not really simulating a light bulb, right? If you put a light bulb in there, a light bulb doesn't act like a cone light. So instead, I'm going to use a point light. I'm just going to move it into place. And if you're having a hard time maybe seeing exactly where this is going to go, you can actually do a couple of different things. For one thing, you can change your perspective. Like I'd like to go to a top view instead, and then I can see where I am. So there is my light, right? And of course it's the center of my light, but I can't quite see that through the chair there. So here we go. So now I'm on the left side. I'm just kind of putting it right through there. I don't want to put it too far in, otherwise it's going to be completely blocked by the polygons inside. So there we go. So now I have that light done. So it's giving me a bunch of previews. It's telling me that, hey, this isn't going to work. You don't have it compiled yet, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to change that intensity. So right now it's an 8. So I'm going to make that a 5. So it's a little bit lower. And then I'm simply going to click Build. Okay, so there we go. So you can see it went ahead and built my light. So now I actually have my lights working as far as from in here and then shining down. Now we can go ahead and turn that down more. And also you see we're getting some slight bounces and stuff happening, and that's just because we don't have our lighting quality building at production. We have it building at, right now I believe it's being built at preview quality, right? So the higher quality you build the lighting, the better it will be. So I can go ahead and turn this down even more, I think. I'm going to go ahead and make that a 3. And I'm going to turn down the attenuation radius a little bit. The attenuation radius is this sphere. So that's how much the light is actually affecting. So I'm going to turn that down and click Build one more time. There we go. So now you can see the light is going to be happening in a shorter distance. And also I think we're getting a little bit better shadow bounces now. Yeah. Okay, so that's lighting. That's very simple lighting. We're going to do a lot more advanced lighting as we go through. But let's say you want to make your scene a little darker. You can click on this scene, this light right here, which is your main light. And I can change this to like 1. And it's just going to kind of lower your overall lighting. It's not going to affect your night sky yet, because we have to go through a whole bunch of stuff to adjust that. So we'll be doing that a little bit later. So don't stress over it right now. If you want it to be really dark in your scene, like nighttime, and then have lights coming out of the house, you can simply delete your skybox if you want to, which is entirely an option. So you can see I'm now just a little bit darker, but my skybox is still really, really bright. So there we go. All right, so now let's look at materials real fast. So if I go to Content and then Starter Content, I have something called Materials. So let's say I want this to be a brick wall or a cobblestone wall. Actually, here's brick. I'm just going to grab this brick and drag and drop it onto the objects. And you can see it actually goes across. It's a repeating texture, so as long as they're snapped together, it's going to look like it matches. There's going to be a little bit of an issue on the edge, and that's fine. Usually you'd use like a pillar piece for the edge instead of what we did. So now I have this like little brick house here. Very exciting. Or, you know, maybe I can have like... Okay, so as you can see, we've now just applied our cool like sci-fi type material. You can even grab and make like an ocean material on your wall if you wanted to. Really, I just want you to build something that looks cohesive, looks realistic, as much as you can, but also have fun with it. And I'm just placing random materials at this point. So make sure to do that for your project. So if you're for the final piece of this project is you're actually going to turn in a fully constructed room environment that has materials on it, and everything needs to look realistic. You need to have lights there, all of that good stuff. We're going to be going over how to change the color of lights and all of that stuff very soon. So this one, don't necessarily worry about that. But as we move forward, we will be changing all of that stuff. All right, so that's what I want you guys to work on, is getting all of that set up. And please have a lot of fun. Unreal Engine 4 is an amazing program. I cannot express how fun it is. And you can build anything you want to in it. So we're going to get started with this.